Welcome back to the 6th Gear Garage. Last time I showed how to do a mini C-notch on the newly painted southern frame for this rusty 1980 Toyota long bed. Today, I'm going to be removing the 20R engine to freshen it up and eventually drop it into the new frame. Now when I pulled the 20R out of the parts truck, which is now my nice one, I had it over here and I was having a heck of a time breaking that crank pulley bolt loose. I'm going to put the 19mm socket and breaker bar across the frame over here on the crank pulley bolt and start it and let the torque of the starter loosen the bolt for me. First, I needed to get some things out of the way, starting with the coolant and washer reservoir. Next, I drained the coolant and noticed that it was looking pretty dark. And I also noticed something else strange. So I just saw this weird stuff on the ground. It's like this iridescent yellow and pink, it's like gel. And it turns out it's in the cooling system. I have never seen this before. I don't even know how that happens. Coolant's nasty too. I wonder if they mixed green with red. Next, I disconnected the cooling lines for the automatic transmission and removed the fan, shroud, and radiator, which surprised me to see that it was the original brass radiator. Now it's time to loosen the crank pulley bolt with the help of the starter motor. And that is the easy way to loosen a crank pulley bolt. So underneath here, what I did was I pulled the inspection covers off of the front of the transmission, and you can see inside there's going to be 6 bolts that bolt the torque converter to the flex plate. And to access those 6 bolts, you saw me rotating the crankshaft, which turns the engine, and then this will cycle through and I'll be able to loosen and remove all of those 6 bolts. Next, I unbolted and removed the starter. I already made a full video on replacing that. Link will be in the description. Now when it comes to removing those top 2 transmission bolts, sometimes on the 4-wheel drive trucks, I find it easier to access them through the side here, especially if it has a body lift like my Red 85 does. But on a 2-wheel drive, what I like to do is get a universal socket. It's a 17mm, and that'll give you a little bit of flex and angle here, and go way up over the transmission using about 3 or 4 feet of extensions. And then use a breaker bar as leverage to break the bolt loose. Once it gets started, you can get it out with the ratchet. And here's what those top 2 bolts look like. I put a piece of cardboard under the front of the transmission and then used a ratchet strap to support it. Then continued removing the transmission bolts. And if you're wondering, the automatics and the manuals do use different bolts on a 20R motor. Over here we have the manual transmission bolts from the parts truck, and over here we have the automatic ones from the blue truck. And you can see the blue truck has 2 longer bolts, and these were the ones that were on the top. Not that the 20R ever made a lot of power, but look at how restrictive this exhaust is. Once I had the engine supported, I unbolted the passenger side motor mount and then the driver's side motor mount. Okay, unless I'm forgetting something really obvious, we are ready for liftoff. Okay, we are not 100% free just yet. This is the cable for the transmission, for the kickdown cable. Whoops, that was violent. I did disconnect it here, but I forgot to disconnect it right here. So let me do that really quick. Now we're free. Yes. And I've been reminding myself all day, I always forget to stop and take a picture for the thumbnail. So I'm going to do that in just a second. Oh, oops. The water pump got stuck on the core support here. And we're looking good back here. All good. And that's as high as she goes. Should just clear. That's perfect. All right, got the thumbnail. Now normally I have just a Harbor Freight engine hoist cherry picker that I use to remove an engine. However, Mikey's borrowing that, so I'm borrowing his homemade A-frame hoist. It's got a winch on the top, and it's a little bit more than I would need for a project like this, but it's gonna come in handy when I pull off the cab. Next, I need to get this engine onto that stand. And look at that, that's pretty clean. I don't know if that's the original rear main seal or not, NGK. You guys know if that's OEM Toyota, let me know in the comments. But it might be leaking a little bit. Or actually that could be oil creeping up from the oil pan gasket as well, because it's all over. So the issue here is that this plate is so thick that I don't have a bolt long enough to go in and actually go past maybe 4 threads. So I have a longer bolt, but it's too long, and when it's all the way in, it's gonna leave about a maybe ½ inch space or so between the engine block and this mount bracket. But luckily I saved all this old rusty hardware from the front end of the Oklahoma truck, and looks like these nuts are gonna be just about the right thickness to put in front of this bracket. I'm gonna let this soak, go grab some lunch, and then we'll give it the pressure washing. I decided to pull out the truck and give the engine bay a quick bath as well. And you can see by the amount of dirt on the driveway that it definitely needed it. Next time, I'll be going over the engine and replacing some gaskets, along with the oil pump, fuel pump, thermostat, and more. Thanks for watching.